It's time for the newspaper headlines. We're starting off with Ghanaian Times. It says, Presidential Pitch Program, 10 young entrepreneurs get 350,000 Ghana cedis. And there's a picture of the winner taking her 50,000 cedi check with the President and the Minister for Business Development. Also, Vice President urges cost efficiency in project implementation. Then very soon, drivers are to use electronic stickers. Well, how will that go? I guess that's to curb down on the fake ones that are in the system. Moving on to another newspaper headline after the Ghanaian Times, which touches on three important headlines. We'll be talking about others on Daily Graphic. It says entrepreneur 18 gets 75,000 Ghana cedis. She wins maiden presidential pitch. Well, the figures seem to be different based on where you're reading from. But a Ghana royal family also swears oath to get relatives buried. Then the vice president again bemoans corruption in public procurement. Then government has breached Petroleum Act, and that's coming from PIAC. We'll delve into that deeper to find out exactly what their concerns are. Then also newspaper headlines coming in this morning. There are so many stories, but importantly, of course, presidential pitch has taken place and there has been a winner. Daily Guide also says the MPP has cleared 41 for the Koforidua confab. Then Bawumia screams ebay over $25 million NDC hospital. Then 3 also perish in a crash at Bodje. And then finally, NDC boys chase Baba Jamal from Nima. Why is that so? We'll be finding out when we go into details. BNFT also says government committed to complete automated clearance at the port. Then mid-year budget must stabilize the cedi. That's a GN research that has been published. Then also nuclear energy for power production is to begin in 2029. Then finally, small-scale fishing industry makes its voice heard in fisheries law reforms. We'll find out what exactly that carries. Then the Finder also says relief for startups. 10 receive a total of 370,000 Ghana cedis. The president is highly optimistic about the future of the private sector. Then also the small-scale miners have lauded the plans to lift the ban on small-scale mining. Then Lakeside Estate wins land case against the La Manche at the appeals court. Then of course Dr. Bawumia comes again saying cost of government projects are too expensive. Then finally former Minister for Health Alex Sebefia says Dr. Bawumia's hospital cost comparisons are unfair. So these are the headlines that have come in as of now, and we'll be doing the review just about now.
Okay,
right.
So great. The startups story has a wide coverage this morning, and you can see it all over the Finder, the Times, and I think Daily Graphic. All of them have a story. Great stuff. I mean, getting people off the ground is certainly a good thing to do. Right. We're told that about 2,000 started the process and finally trimmed down to 10. Good start. The key thing is how to ensure that indeed the business plans that they put out there can be nurtured to grow. For me, it is not too much of a novelty. It's been done before. Several young people have received support in order to build up whatever businesses they have. The key thing is that there are several other young people there who, when they get the same support, can also come up with the same ideas that can be nurtured into giant businesses. Now, only 10 of them we have seen here. The remaining will still be struggling. The key thing for me is to make the economy in such a way that it will not have to take the president to put together a project, the presidential pitch, to get young entrepreneurs the needed resources, the encouragement to move on. If you remember, we're told that some time ago, I mean, people who were coming out of the universities would have that encouragement from businesses so that they can learn to become entrepreneurs. How did it go? Where did it end? So, good start, but let us not forget the thousands of others who are out there who won't be part of this. Now, 2,000 started, 10 have been picked. The remaining, where would they be? Are we leaving them behind just like that? And even those who could not apply onto the program at all, what happens to them? The commitment for me, government should take a look at stabilizing the cedi, getting interest rates down, and then if I have any idea, I can quickly walk into any bank, grab a loan, and off I go. And so, good for them, but let's see more of this, and a general effort aimed at getting every young person who has a business idea.
But I certainly agree with you. But also looking at this, I'm looking at the private sector being involved, because government has spoken oftentimes of incorporating the private sector into what they do. Because like you said, this is just 10. So the 1,900 and about 90 who were left behind, at least if the private businesses came in, they would at least see those who have the potential to grow their businesses. Of course, because they're private, everyone wants to make sure that their money is going to a venture that will bring good returns. So you can relatively do that. When you see that the venture is pretty good, they have good ideas, great startup, why don't you pump some money into them and look forward to nurturing them so that they can also bring in good returns? They would eventually employ some people. The president says at least each one of these people should employ 3 people to start up with. Then I'm looking about 30 out of the 10. If we say 3 per person, that's about 30 more being recruited. That should not stop there. People should also couch, and private businesses should pump monies into these people, because there are so many people out there who have great ideas. They just need the funding, which is a big issue in Ghana.
It's not even
too much of it.
Yes, but just a mentoring system.
Knowing that someone is looking up to you out there, someone is going to push you from behind. But a good initiative.
Yesterday,
we wish them all the best.
Yes, the chief executive officer of the National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program said that apart from this 10 that we've seen, that program is also taking a look at other areas where they can help young people. Good. If you remember, the previous government set up the data center around the Nkrumah Circle there. We're told that center was to create about 10,000 jobs. We don't know what has happened to the center. Anytime you drive past there, you see the gate well painted, and we don't know what's happening there. So a lot more people will need support. For me, the key thing is that let us learn from what Rwanda and others are doing. Let us not concentrate on just a few people. Let us make sure the economy is well running, so that the cedi is down, interest rates are down. People can walk in, take a loan of, let's say, 5,000 cedis, pay very little, run a small business, and you have that business can take care of 10, 20 people. Okay, it's been done. I always say that. Look, my grandmother never went to school, but her bakery business is what paid my fees. Okay, so if at that point she could do that, I'm wondering if someone has access to some funding, won't that help? So good show, good start, but let us expand the net and get a lot more people, and that means making sure the economy is on the right footing.
I certainly agree with you. Right, but Dr. Bawumia has also been bemoaning the corruption in public procurement and talking about the fact that government projects are too expensive. Again, it comes back to government. Why are these costings expensive? Because there's no standardized structure of knowing that if we want to put up a 5-bedroom house, it's supposed to cost, say, 200 Ghana cedis, and it ends at that. So everyone knows that's a cap for a particular building. Everyone goes in costs at their own, whatever, using their own, variables, comes up with the cost. Then also it comes back to government. If I tell you that I'm a contractor, I'm going to be able to do this building in a year, and you don't give me the money as I need to do so to put up the building in the 1 year, I'll then postpone. It will go into another year. You'd have to pay me for all those years I've spent doing that. It goes into employing more people. It goes into the time I've wasted. And then, when you come back to tell us that the government's costing is expensive, it's because these structures are not in place to regulate what you can do with the government money. Again, the delays are there. If government starts to pay on time, I guess then the inflations will not catch up. I hear there's a building, when they built certain projects in Kumasi in 2014, it cost about 600 Ghana cedis. Now, 600 million.
Ghana
now,
cedis.
in 2 years or in a year later, when they had to go back to the project because they are delayed, it bloated to about 1.8 million. So you realize that it keeps going up because you're delaying. So why not put in stringent measures to make sure that you give the person the funding? Once you say you have to carry out this project, you make sure within the stipulated time, you give them all the funding they need, carry out the project, finish it in due time, and then the money is, used appropriately. Otherwise, we'll keep coming back to it being too expensive, there being corruption in the public procurement. But it's not up to us, it's up to government to do.
I heard yesterday when Dr. Bawumia has spoken, I heard government communicators trying to justify what Bawumia is saying, and I also heard other some appointees of the former government. And even in the finder this morning, the former health minister, Sebefia, isn't too happy. He is suggesting that Dr. Bawumia is comparing apples and oranges. Well, for me, it is good Dr. Bawumia has flagged the problem, if it is indeed a problem.
Right.
The key question to ask is this. We have a house, the House of Parliament, that approves this project. This project, the cost is sent to Parliament. The assumption is that Parliament will do due diligence before approving it.
Right.
Now, if Dr. Bawumia has flagged such a problem, where should we put the blame?
On Parliament.
On the previous government or on Parliament? Now, the Parliament under the previous government had both majority and minority members. They sat down and approved this project. None of the MPs in the last Parliament came out to say that this hospital or that facility, even though we have approved it, is too expensive. Which then tells me, or I assume, that Parliament agrees and believes that this is indeed the proper cost of the project.
Right.
Now, if Dr. Bawumia has flagged this problem, then it means that there's something wrong with the approval of the cost of the project.
Right.
And that means that it has to come from Parliament. Except to say that when any of this project Dr. Bawumia is referring to was cleared to be undertaken, a member of the House has come out to say that, look, we approved this amount of money for this project. I think it is too much. We are yet to hear anything like that. We didn't hear anything like that. Then it means that there's a problem with the approval process.
Right.
Either Parliament is not doing due diligence or there's something wrong. So for me, we'll flag the problem. Let us go back to the basics. How does the project get approved? And then we know that this is what goes into it and this is what is wrong. If we are not careful, what will happen is that, again, the party game will start. And the finder has Mr. Segbefia's photograph here, and he talking about the issue. So it becomes a political thing. We'll end up saying that, well, the previous government was corrupt. They did ABC at this price, and then the corruption allegation will start. The problem will be there. Let us go back to the basics. How these projects are approved. What is done right, what is done wrong, and then we can find a way. Other than that, we'll just be doing political party allegations, and then the problem will remain.
But right, we're moving on to drivers using electronic stickers. Why? What's wrong with our current stickers?
Well, we're told that they're fake. The stickers on your screens are fake. So,
but the problem is, aren't the watermarks and aren't the specific
which are supposed to be
security
them
features?
authentic.
That exactly. So it's funny when we come back to, you know, that's not being said. It's not like you can't have mistakes with, let's say, gadgets or instruments you put out.
Right.
But it always comes to the costing. And again, if you do due diligence to make sure you procure these items for us as a nation, I'm trusting that you got the best offer. So if now you are coming to tell us, because it comes back to the drivers, we taxpayers are going to be costed for these electronic stickers. What if in the next few years you come back to tell us that electronic stickers are also fake? So we're changing to something else. We'll keep on updating ourselves. Can we just stick to one thing, make sure we're doing the right thing, and then move on from there? Otherwise, we keep coming back with pretty, you know, things that don't sound right.
Right. I think that the Insurance Commission's mandate is to check these things. These days, I've seen MTTD officials hold a certain piece of equipment that they...
Like a scanner, sort
yes,
of.
when you stop, they're able to do a quick scan in front of your screens, and then they have, I don't know exactly what is different between that one and the new one that we're going to have, according to the Insurance Commission. But hey, let's hope that indeed it is to weed out the fake people who are into insurance. It's a key thing. I mean, vehicles get damaged, properties, particular vehicles get damaged, and they don't get to be paid because of fake insurance company and stuff like that. If indeed this is what will work, fine. But hey, we've got to be very careful, because you know, the people, when you are trying to find a stone a bird is also looking for a place to land.
It is. But interestingly, PIAC has, fingered the government in the disbursements of the petroleum revenue. And I'm happy. I pray this development goes into big details, coming out with exactly what they breached, because we all are interested in the petroleum revenue. We all thought, we had plans for it. We thought it was going to be used for certain allocations, but now we're
the law says it should be used for certain.
A, but I hear now we're adding B, C, D, and that's worrying, because if no one, reminds us of what the law says it should do, then we'll keep on using monies that are not being channeled to the right, usage. We said we're going to use it mainly for, I think it was roads.
I think capital investment.
Yeah, capital investment. Now we're doing roads, we're doing hospitals, we're doing schools, we're doing fertilizer supplies,
to buy consumables and stuff like that. So
anyway,
look, PIAC has been doing great stuff. The key thing is when they have come up with these, what happens to the report? Now, if you read a story, PIAC is asking Parliament to act. I don't know how well Parliament can act. Right. If indeed it's been breached, are there sanctions? Right. What are the sanctions? Who faces the sanctions? Okay, so the report coming out is okay, but often we don't get to hear of what sanctions have been taken. So every year we find PIAC out with certain reports suggesting that monies earmarked for this have not been used and has been misdirected into some other area, and yet we don't seem to get,
because no one is punished for it, so
they
might as well get away with it.
PIAC good in releasing the report. Let us see what the sanctions are, so that next year, next 2 years, next 3 years, PIAC is not gone back to the same, telling us that the act is being breached again.
Anyway, so it's time for us to rant with George Quaining, and we're still talking about legalizing paternity leave. What's your take on that? Let's step out on the street and see what you have to say.
This is what it feels like. It's said that what is good for the goose is equally good for the gander, and women are already enjoying some maternity leave of 12 weeks, and that's 3 months. And even with that, they are pushing for extension. Men are also pushing for similar agenda, and for them, that's the paternity leave. 1 month, I'm sure, will be okay. They are not asking for too much, are they? And so, should the law recognize paternity leave? This is Daily Rant. Let's keep talking.
I don't think it's that important for a man to stay at home. The work of a man is to provide for the family. So if the provider stays at home, what's the importance? That's all. The mother has to take care of the kid for the first month. Breastfeeding is should be inclusive. They are promoting this, so I think it should be reserved for the women, and the men should work.
Anybody that is championing for that, I think is very necessary, because in modern day, if the man is at home helping the woman take care of the baby, I think is very perfect. Yeah, because I think in Ireland, I read an article that they're trying to pass a bill. Women mostly take 12 weeks.
Yeah, 12, that's
leave,
3 months. Yeah.
In case of cesarean, they can give them extra 2 weeks. When the man is at home, I mean, the woman can get some help.
Yeah.
For that. So I think it's good.
So what do you think of it?
I think it's unnecessary. Come to think of it, if you think you need a paternity leave or something, just go get your normal leave days, go stay at home. Let's imagine two couple working in the same entity. Some firms agree to that. Yeah. So the lady goes and the man goes. What happens to the work?
Look at this, not all going together. If let's say the woman goes and then spends the 3 months, and when she comes,
what would the
man will go.
Or could
you know why I'm saying this? Because I didn't say. I said the bond, the woman and then the kids, the bond becomes great, and at the expense of the man's bond.
See, you can't actually compare the bond between a kid and the mom to that of the dad. Or
but you change the status quo.
No, it's not about you changing it. It's about you giving time. It's about you connecting well with your family. It doesn't. You don't have to be in the house from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. to connect with your kid. You can come home as late as 12 and still connect to them.
It helps them bond with their children, because in our case in Africa, I think it's like I miss my mom. Yeah, I miss my mom, like that kind of thing.
But it's worldwide though. It's everywhere.
It's not everywhere. It's not everywhere. Because hardly do you hear I miss my mom. Like I miss my dad. I want to go to my dad and all that. So I think giving them that time, like a month or 2 months, would help, like get that bond and all that. I think it will help.
The first question is, how long is it? Is it a month or
Let's
two?
Say a month or two.
Are you telling me that after 30 days if you should leave the kid and go somewhere, the kid will still remember you.
You understand?
Are you telling me that you need just 30 days from the first 30 days of the baby to born the baby? I mean, if you want to born with your kid, it's not about...
Yes, right.
No. If you really want to born with your kid, it's not about the first 30 days or the second 30 days. You don't need a month to born with your kid. It's a process.
Good.
And trust me, even if you work and you live far away from your office and you get home as late as 6 p.m., you still have the hours of 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. to born with the baby. Okay, so you born for 30 and after 30 days, what happens?
You give you a break.
That's it. No, come on.
Not a break. No.
1 month. Is it the first 3 months?
No, I'm saying if when the woman is done, then when the 3 months, the woman is done with the 3 months, and then the man will follow.
Because see, what are you going to do? Are you going to breastfeed the kid? Are you going to change that?
You babysit.
No, please don't babysit. It's first 6 months.
What I think is that, is it just about bonding?
Okay, it goes beyond bonding. Yeah.
Hey, what is it about if it's not
just about bonding?
Hold on. In Africa, the first 6 months of a kid, the men are normally put on the sideline.
Yeah.
It's the mother and the mother of the mother.
Good. Really?
They do the bath.
That's my point.
They do the bathing of the baby. They do the breastfeeding. They do everything.
Yeah.
You the man, what are you going to do?
Just provide the facts.
Can you bath a 6-month-old baby? Can you bath a 6-month-old baby?
That is it. You can learn and
Can't I learn?
You can't learn. You will want to learn with your new kid.
No,
Senate.
You get the money. Good. Buy SME. Buy diapers. Buy diapers. Yeah, I have a kid.
Yeah, you have a kid.
I'm part of my baby. I'm part of my baby.
Who's the baby mama? Who's it?
You see, let's take a critical look at this. You know, in Africa, especially in Accra here, or even in Ghana, let's put it in Ghana as a whole, we mostly don't live with extended family. We live with a nuclear. So you have you and your wife at home.
Only in Accra.
Just you two. I'm coming. You just listen. Just you two.
When the wife
just you two. And when you are home, and the wife delivers, mostly because of economic situations, you don't have siblings staying with you because you don't even have a bigger space. So you don't have siblings around. So if you live with your wife and she delivers, your space wouldn't allow you to even bring a sibling to come and help you. So when a man goes on a paternity leave, the man can be in the house to help.
To do what? To do what?
No.
For 30 days.
What is good for the goose is good for Ghana.
Please, I can't know what the woman can do in relation to kids. I can't do. I beg.
There's so many help you can give to the woman.
That's what you're supporting.
Take of the baby.
That's not Tony, man.
No.
And top love.
You know what?
Take your paternity leave with the maternity leave with the guy and the girl. You chop love.
That is the thing.
You actually abandon the baby and do husband-wife issues. You won't have time for the baby.
Some people also say if the guys are giving the paternity leave, they will attend to your side checks. And
that is the point. No. Now you have a lot of time. You just go, oh, I bought this for you. Let me hold the kid for 30 minutes. Then
okay, tell wife me 3 years don't buy.
You understand?
I think we should, as a country or as a people, we should introduce certain things that will make fathers born with their kids.
But
not paternity. No, it's our culture. It's our culture. The father is always that leading head that all of us should be scared of. But if the father bonds with you, take you to maybe games or
you need 30 days.
That one is not important. I'm not supporting the 30 days.
Like we said, we are pushing for it. If you come back, let's say yes, residential 1 month.
See, let me tell you something about it.
See the first instance of the baby
it doesn't know anybody.
Forget it.
The baby doesn't know anybody.
That's when they start to know people.
We are looking at just one side of the whole story. We are looking at just bonding. It goes beyond bonding. It goes beyond bonding. You see, when a man is at home, you understand? When a man is at home, the man is helping the woman take off the baby.
What is he doing?
No, the man doesn't necessarily have to go for a month leave. Just 2 weeks. In Ireland, you know what they were doing? They were pushing for that a man can go on just 2 weeks paternity leave, so that you come home and help the woman take off the baby.
It's not bad.
It depends on your employer. It's as per maybe your contractual agreement with the employer.
Why don't you just take a normal leave, 2 weeks
maybe with full pay or without pay. That one depends on your employer. So you can still come help the lady.
Yeah. But, do you know the basis of and maternity leave. The pain after birth.
Yeah.
The trauma after birth.
Good.
Breastfeeding the new baby.
Good.
Getting used to a new baby.
Good.
Life, trying to accept life with the new baby. You the man, you don't breastfeed. No trauma for you.
Are you sure?
No pain. What do you go through? The father, your wife delivering, the wife says, hey, hold your hand there, let me say, hey, that one is pain. Somebody just say, push. You know, man, what do you go through?
We go through a lot.
We should actually, so this course are unnecessary.
It's unnecessary. You see, the first weeks, there's something called socialization. You are trying to actually let the kid get used to what life is, because he or she doesn't really know what it is. So if you tell me the daddy needs number of days off to look after the kids, for what? Whilst the lady is there. Let's consider this thing. What if I'm not married?
You don't need a paternity leave then.
That's so unfair. Because I'm not married.
Why did you?
Isn't a baby?
Is it not the father?
Isn't it my baby? So you see,
You are not married. Why did you?
you are talking about the kid. Now we are talking about the kid. Now you want to push me to another level that I'm not married. No, we don't need it. If we have to do it, let's do it well.
Listen, half day. Even when you even adopt a baby, they give you a maternity
Then
leave.
when I do it outside wedlock, I should get paternity leave too.
So I don't have issue with that. I don't have problem with that. But what I'm saying is that for the man to be at home to support the child,
I don't get the support.
No, there's somebody just not about breastfeeding. I mean, it's not about just.
No, you close at 5 p.m. You choose to do your overtime and get your extra money. So it is you. You can close at 5.
Do you know that babies don't have a sleep pattern?
Yeah.
Sometimes they're actually up at night, so you can still take care of. Yeah, they have a sleep pattern. You can take paternity leave, and during the day they'll be sleeping. So what's the point?
In our Labor Act, we don't have anything like that.
Yeah, it's not there.
Other nations are pushing for that, for paternity leave. If you don't know, I'm telling
Trump
you.
actually said something which I can't say online.
Yeah.
You should consider that as well.
What I'm saying is that
Yes.
you see, nations are pushing for that, and I feel that it will come to play. Maybe the government should put this to Parliament for them to deliberate on
actually
it.
request for more leave days for the women. Not the men.
So giving more leave days to the woman than like instead of like giving the woman like the usual 12 weeks that we give them, they're giving the man like just 2 weeks.
We don't need for the man, we need for the woman.
Well, the debate continues on our social media platforms. So you make, of course, for the paternity leave to be captured by law, just log on to our social media platforms. On Facebook, there's News on TV3, and on Twitter, there's a News TV3. Thanks for watching. Have a good morning.
This is what it feels like.
Dr. Bawumia's hospital cost comparisons unfair. That's a former health minister there. Government has breached the Petroleum Act. PIAC has that story, and that young entrepreneur story also gets space on the Times. The daily guide continues the the project story with Dr. Bawumia, and the BNFT talks about the city and says that its stability will depend on the media budget. Those are the papers I have. My guest this morning is a member of the NPP's team, Mr. Eric Chum Amwakon is here. Good morning.
Good morning, Brad.
Hope you're doing great.
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm good too. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
And then member of parliament for the Damongo constituency, a member of the NDC, Honorable Mutawakil is also here. Good morning too.
Good morning.
Hope you're doing great.
Indeed.
How was the constituency elections?
Yeah, it went on smoothly, and nothing untoward happened. And I want to take this opportunity to extend congratulatory message to the winners and to tell the losers that it is not a rejection. It's just that the people felt that these people should lead for another period of 4 years. And then more especially to the delegates for their dedication, commitment, and having the time to sit up to almost 6 o'clock to be able to do what is expected of them. I want to say congratulations to NDC in general and all other constituencies that conducted their election, and those that are still pending. I wish them all the best of luck.
All right. Let's quickly touch on this story, making a lot of commentary this morning, yesterday and this morning. Dr. Bawumia at a program, Value for Money program, has raised certain concerns about the cost of projects. The Times put it as VIP urges cost efficiency in project implementation. He's asking public sector institutions to ensure cost efficiency in the implementation of infrastructure projects, and this, he said, will reduce the financial wastage and protect the public purse. The Vice President raised concerns about project cost in the country and said these appear to be too high compared with those of other countries in the sub-region globally. And so he goes ahead to do a comparative analysis. He said that better quality hospitals were currently built at a more cost-effective rate in places like India than in Ghana. Ghana has been constructing 60 to 80 bed district hospitals for $25 million. And he said if the cost was compared to 150 bed hospital built in Accra by the African Development Bank at 5.67 million cedis or $1.3 million without equipment, the difference was stark. Even if we have to equip this hospital for some $1 million, the total cost cannot get to more than $3 million. So he is asking, how can we are building district hospitals for $25 million, a figure which even excludes the tax exemptions granted on equipment imported for the facility. So that's a story in the Times. He again cited the building of 1,000 bed capacity hospital for nearly under $20 million by Dangote and said it begs the question why Ghana builds an even smaller capacity 400 bed facility for nearly $300 million. And that is where a former health minister, Mr. Segbefia, isn't too happy. He thinks that that comparison is unfair. In the finder, he says that without providing details of contract that led to the construction of the hospital, it was out of place for Dr. Bawumia to suggest the price of the hospital had been inflated in comparison to another. That is his worry, trying to compare apples and oranges. That's how he puts it in the finder this morning. Eric, let me start the conversation with you. Now, or probably you are from Parliament. Let me begin this conversation with you, because these projects certainly would have gone through the House before being approved.
Thank you very much, and good morning to our cherished listeners, and more especially the good people of Damongo constituency. The issue of cost of projects is of concern to Ghanaians, and Ghanaians will want to make sure that there is value for money. And as structures have been put in place to ensure that projects that are executed are value for money oriented. Most often, before those days, when a loan agreement comes to Parliament and we approve, that is the end of the role of Parliament. The procurement, the Procurement Act that was set up to ensure value for money will take ahead and go and execute. Under President Mahama, they ensure that we don't only approve the loan, but we approve what we call the commercial agreement. So under President Mahama, we ensure that when we approve the loan, whatever bills of quantities that it contains to be able to execute it is brought back to Parliament. We call it commercial agreement. So that Parliament, which is representing the people, have the opportunity to go item by item and the cost per unit. I would say bills of quantities. Okay. Parliament ensure that there is value for money report by what we call normally Crown agents. They do the value for money and attach in Parliament. Since we came after President Mahama, having seen the commercial agreement that has been brought before us to be able to scrutinize, to ensure that there is value for money. Now, let's come to comparisons. I think Dr. Bawumia, the Vice President, made a statement with some comparisons. First and foremost, I want to ask our religious leaders to pray for Dr. Bawumia. His appetite for misleading the public has no point of satiety, no point of satisfaction. The more he lies, the more he feels like lying. I thought he would have made specific reference to a project and said that this project at this location, so that we have the opportunity to look at it and make comparisons.
Then it politicizes the whole
thing. As a doctor, I expected that when somebody gives you an information, on your own, you do comparisons. Find out before you make that statement. I believe that if somebody tells Dr. Belga 1 + 1 is 10, he will rush to the public and tell the public that 1 + 1 is 10. Until the public draws his attention that that is not true, then he comes back to his senses. Now let me go to Ghana business news. I just want to, the same African Development Bank, on the 9th of November 2013, executed a district hospital at Takwa. The people of Takwa will know the hospital.
2013.
Yes. African Development Bank construct $23.2 million ultra-modern hospital in Takwa. How will Dr. Baumia compare this to what he stated? Is it that this one, the value was exaggerated by the same African Development Bank?
$23 million.
$23.2 million.
But he said that the one in Accra cost $1.3 million.
That is why I said, when you are giving information, do some comparisons. And that's why I made that statement. Because the requirement varies. The type of infrastructure you are putting out varies. Does it need an accident center? Does it need theater? What are the equipment you are providing? Are very critical in determining the cost. The architects or the building engineers, you should have asked them on what basis did they have this and get information. The same African Development Bank, you said this, 5 years ago, constructed a district hospital at the cost of $23.2 million. How do you then come to conclude that our projects are inflated? So he doesn't take his time to do enough consultation when he is making a statement. So on that basis, how about those projects that has been executed? Who is causing more harm to the people of Ghana? If a project is executed, all the equipment in, and the government refuses to use that infrastructure. Ofanko, an infrastructure there, health facility, completed, not being used. All the equipment getting waste. When people are not able to secure bed because they have to pass on. So let me just summarize.
Before you summarize, so you disagree that projects cost are inflated? You totally disagree?
No, I started with my basis.
Okay.
That is why I said in Parliament, apart from the loan agreement, you need what we call the commercial agreement. So that under the commercial agreement, there is value for money report that is attached, mostly by an entity called Crown Agents. This gives the opportunity to value, to make comments, to ensure that the right thing is done. And that is why when President Nana Akufo-Addo made a statement about the Kaswa interchange, his own ranking member disputed it because it wasn't only the loan agreement that came to Parliament, but the commercial agreement that outlined the bills of quantities, of which both parties, NDC, NPP, any other party, have the opportunity to look at. So that is why I'm making that statement. So if this infrastructure are left to rot, that is more of cost to Ghanaians. 2, he should look under his ambit at the Flagstaff House, the Ministry of Special Development Initiative. In 2016, the cost of 6-unit classroom block cost about 400,000 Ghana cedis.
Was that in the budget?
They brought in.
Was that in the budget?
No, I'm now coming to the budget what they submitted. Okay. So in 2016, the cost of 6-unit classroom block cost 400,000 Ghana cedis. Last year's budget, the Ministry of Special Development Initiative under the presidency brought a budget of which the same 6-unit classroom block cost 700,000 Ghana cedis, almost double the amount. Did they do for value for money? 2, The cost of a mechanized borehole in 2016 under President Mahama cost 66,000 Ghana cedis. The same ministry in the budget brought it, the same mechanized borehole costing 132,000 Ghana cedis, more than twice that amount. Mr. Vice President, why didn't you do the real value for money? Because this is a high jump.
I see.
From that, a $2.5 million GPS. I want to believe he has done value for money, because what they have brought is virtually Google. So we believe it's inflated. If he has value for money that he has undercut and has carried out, he should let us know. 3, Calvin DVG. You are requesting for the contract document for money and what have you to be able to assess, to be able to do independent that he is calling for other state agencies and civil society to ensure that there is value for money. A contract that was signed just recently, the ministry says it cannot even locate the contract documents. As we see, they can't locate the contract document. So first of all, put your house in order. But I think you missed the point. He relies on small information, very narrow, and goes to the market to sell. And that is why I'm calling on religious leaders and Ghanaians to pray for him.
I see. I'm grateful. Eric, Mr. Alex Segbefi, a former health minister, is said to have said this in the finder, and I'm reading this to you. He said that politicians are particularly fond of making hasty comparisons without looking at the details. That is in reaction to Dr. Bamia's assertion that some health facilities, the projects were inflated. Is that an apt description of the way politicians look at things?
Well, to start with, thank you very much for having me. Good morning to my Akonta here, even though he refused to greet me.
I greeted you before the program started.
Whilst I've been looking after his
daughter for you.
Yes, okay. But it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, that's good.
That is my responsibility, civic responsibility. Your in-laws are looking for you.
So be careful when you're talking to anyone.
Exactly. So that is why I have to sort of restrain myself. But I'm actually quite scandalized the trajectory that he went. And I thought that this conversation was going to be more on the substance of what the Vice President said, in terms of really if there's a value for money in terms of all the infrastructure projects and even all the other things that we undertake as a country. And I think that when you go out there, the verdict will be that it doesn't seem like we do get value for money for projects. So I was expecting some kind of either a solution-based conversation or some kind of intellectual conversation. But then it's become politics as usual. Again, it's also imperative to look at it from this perspective. If he's going on about the fact that there was a hasty or absolutely no comparison whatsoever, and that the Vice President should have actually juxtaposed that against specific product or projects, then he should have heeded that advice that is coming from Honorable Segbefi, because even all the things, the number of things that he enumerated, he also didn't bring it to like a strict comparison or a straight comparative analysis, because he was mentioning all sorts of things. This was this amount, this was this amount, and so basically he's gone back to the same thing. He didn't follow the trajectory that he started with, even to start with. But what are we talking about? I've always believed that this conversation about the cost of public infrastructure and all the projects is something that has bedeviled this country for a very long time. You can attribute some level of corruption, maybe a lack of capacity, maybe some sort of bureaucracy or administrative lapses in the process. And that if it's come to the fore, and we all believe, and especially as political leadership, we believe that this is something that it's inimical to the development of this country, let's have a more dispassionate conversation around it. The moment you start drawing political things into it, and innuendos and casting aspersions and all of those things, calling for prayers and everything. I mean, if somebody needs prayers, of course we all need prayers in this country, even as human beings, but that would definitely not be the vice president. But I don't want to go there. I don't want us to divert.
But you don't think that Dr. Bono started it by saying
no? But you see, it is.
If he had said projects from 92 had been inflated.
Listen. It's very key. You see, we live in this country, and a lot of us have made these examples where we say, okay, for instance, if you have MTN or Tigo or African Development Bank, whatever, undertake a specific project, it turns out that the cost always seems to be lower than that has gone through government. And I'm saying that a number of issues or a number of reasons can be attributed to that. But are these things that we can solve? Can we even devise strategies by rationalizing? And I've always made this point that can we, at the beginning of the year, for instance, decide that, okay, when it comes to a six classroom block, for instance, or 15-bed or 20-bed or 80-bed hospital with these specific requirements or specifications, and this is what is going to be in there. This is how much it's going to cost. You can do so. People or project managers in the private sector do that all the time, so that the cost is, you would have some kind of plus or minus effect. It's okay. It shouldn't cost more than 5% or 10% of that. Because even what is even more serious is the fact that sometimes you have issues with budget overruns. So you have an agency or a ministry or a public sector institution that will undertake a project, for instance, and a certain amount of money has been budgeted for it. And then you end up actually spending more than was budgeted for. And if it happens in every single agency or institution, it throws the budget into disarray. Example is what happens with SNIT, for instance, where there was meant to be a software which was going to cost $30 million, and it ended up costing $75 million or more. That actually would throw any budget into some kind of confusion. So let's have a conversation around how we'll be able to forestall that.
These projects, these costs are approved by Parliament.
Yeah, but the process. Listen, and without sounding that Parliament is not doing a fantastic job, have we even been able to put in measures, or is there the capacity even at the Parliament level to actually cost this project, to probably juxtapose that against I'm just asking, I'm just saying. No, if that is the case, if that's not the case as well, let's say that, for instance, I believe strongly that if you are struggling, right, we are struggling as a country, even when we come to the execution of public infrastructure and all of those things, we can also think outside of the box. I've always maintained that if we're able to even develop an act of what we call the Social Responsibility Act, right, where it pertains in other parts of the world, for instance. So you have an institution, let's say for want of an example, MTN, for instance, and you say that, okay, MTN, we want you to use 4% or 5% of your gross profit per annum, specifically for projects in this sector, so that certain benefits will accrue to you. I can bet you that those would probably be a more efficient or a better way of executing certain projects. Of course, not all projects. We can look at all various ways of actually funding projects, so that when it comes to issues to do with efficiency, value for money, and all of, so we are thinking outside of the box. And then, of course, the call for the public sector or public sector institutions to also be up and doing, to scrutinize projects properly, to make sure that we are getting value for money, to make sure that there's no acts of either nepotism or cronyism and all of, should come into play. Again, people will make the argument that the reason why sometimes government projects are even more expensive is because the processes that it goes through for even a contractor to be paid, for instance, takes longer. So you go take a loan and then execute a project, and it goes through a whole administrative and bureaucratic procedure. So we can look at all of this thing in a holistic perspective. But if somebody makes the call that a project here and a project there, if you look at the cost, and he made assertions to the fact that even if you add the equipment, the logistics and all of other things to the cost of the structure. It cannot be 25 million, right? And if you have a project that has been inflated to the tune of maybe 400 and 500%, 100%, 200%, it's something that is a cause for worry.
Let me ask you. You see, if the vice president has flagged these, it means that there should be a review of these contracts so that we get whatever money was inflated back. Now, but the vice president failed to mention names or facilities. What has he done to us?
No, but that is
as a country.
Listen,
because if indeed the project is overpriced, there should be a review of the contract, and then we get our monies back as a country. And yet he refuses to mention the facilities and says that the projects are overpriced.
Yeah, but that is why he made a further call that further scrutiny should be done. Again, I know for a fact that the senior minister, and even recently the Minister for procurement has made allusions to the fact that when it comes to the execution of public infrastructure and projects, there has to be a framework for rationalizing even costs to ascertain the parameters within which you can go. For instance, when it comes to budget overruns, and making sure that when it happens, and this happens in the private sector, it happens all the time. Where at the beginning of the year, you have a scope of work, a scope of services that you want to undertake, and then it's costed. And sometimes, even as and when you're having revenue, either fluctuations and all of those things, you'll be able to tweak what is a priority and what is not a priority and all of it. So it's done. So this is not rocket science. Again, if you look at the fact that we've been doing this for so many years that every year we sit here and say, when the private sector executes a particular project, it's lower, and then when it comes to government. So what we do is that we create a checklist.
So we should blame Parliament for that?
Not necessarily, but the point is that if you have challenges, right, like I indicated earlier, you have to probably think outside of the box. Now, how do we think, for instance, that Parliament would have all the capacity, for instance, to scrutinize maybe a technical project like, let's say, an oil and gas project, you understand, without having beforehand a set of protocols or a set of technical specifications to say that, okay, if when you go to India or you go to
committees have that.
No, I mean, how do we know that? I mean, but that's what I'm saying. That is why I'm saying that. I am saying this. So let's ask a question. I think somewhere in the UAE or something, Dubai, for instance, where a kilometer of, let's say, asphalted road would cost $600,000, right? And then in Ghana, it costs $1.4 million. Then you ask yourself, why? And we need to be asking ourselves these questions.
But and then we need to be all the way from there to here, so certainly the cost will differ.
Exactly, but then the input is this, but I understand. But there are also other things here, like labor, for instance, like other things that are also cheaper. So if you do a cost and effect benefit analysis, there will be inputs in there that would not make it maybe 200% or 100% more expensive. So let's ask ourselves these questions. And of course, the private sector, people who engage in this contract will tell you that it takes a while for government to pay, or the cost of borrowing is higher, and all of those things. Let's actually have this conversation, and let's take the politics out of it, because once we start doing that, for instance, if the honorable vice president mentioned the when the honorable Ali Segrefia tried or made a very woeful attempt to even respond or counter the vice president, he didn't also go and state categorically that, okay, these projects that you're actually claiming that has been inflated had this specification, had all of these things, and that exactly my point. So let's not move into that direction. Once we go there, there will be a plethora of examples that I'll be able to give. And it's not true that in 2016 the cost of a 6-classroom block was 400. It's not true. Okay, how much? Because if you go into he's in Parliament. You go into the Hansard and then 2016 budget, or as far back as 2014, and all of those things. these are friends were building some for 700, 800,000 and all that.
Okay.
And when you talk to them, they say that there were other things that were added. It's true, but you can check.
Okay.
Bright is here, you can check.
If you have,
you can check. And I can tell you categorically that in 2016, the cost of a 6-classroom block was not 400,000. And next time I'm on this platform, I'll tell you.
Okay. Let's move on.
Let's make some quick issue. If Dr. Baumia was not mischief in politics, he would have taken his time to compare a district hospital that has been constructed by the say African Development Bank in Takwa at $23.2 million, and this one that would have raised
2013.
The 2013, 5 years ago.
This one cost $1.3 million. That's what Dr. Baumia.
That is why I'm saying if you had asked those questions, that has been executed by the same African Development Bank, he would have asked, why is it that this one cost that and that one cost that? That is why the architects and the engineers will be needed to explain to him so that you know the standard at which they were built, the requirement per each. And I said, Parliament used to approve what we call commercial agreement. Since this government came, I have not seen a commercial agreement. And I made that difference. You prove a loan of $100 million for a project. Under President Mahama, that is not the end of it. You come back with the commercial agreements that outline the bills of quantities. Okay. So if I think you have made that. If I get that, I can consult anybody who has expert in that to advise me as to what I take there. As an expert in oil and gas, I'm not an expert. I learn it in Parliament. Okay. But when you submit anything to me for the committee to look at, I don't take it to my house and sit and read alone. I know as many as 10 experts in the oil and gas industry. I'll make photocopies, give it to them in advance.
So a
week to that, they give me their comments.
Your point is the House can have expertise to deal with these things.
I mean that not only in Parliament, as a member of Parliament belonging to a committee, it's your responsibility when a document is given to you to go out and find experts to give you comments. So at the end of the day, you have about 6-7 comments from them. You take time, study it, and you know what you are going to do. And as a result, over the period, when they talk of oil and gas, I have some flexibility because that enables me to learn. Each of the experts will not give you the same answer. And by so doing, you learn more. And Parliament will always be willing. You realize in 2015, there was a project, China Water in an International Corporation and Hunan Construction in respect of rural electrification. Crown agents came out that it was inflated by $9 million. And so it should be reduced by that amount. In the value for money report that has been attached to the commercial agreement. Parliament has to take a decision how that $9 million should be used by adding more communities into it. In that case, saving Ghana $9 million. As we speak today, no commercial agreement has been brought before this House. And I think this government must look into that.
All right. Let's move on to Daily Graphic this morning. The Public Interest and Accountability Committee has cited government for breaching the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, that is the PRMA, Act 815, in the disbursement of the petroleum revenue. According to PIAC, the government has spent more on goods and services instead of capital expenditure as required by the law. Now, PIAC is therefore asking Parliament to take steps to ensure that the minister complies with the budget as approved and all upspent ABFE allocations in a particular financial year must be returned to the PHF. PIAC is also asking for the whereabouts of the remaining money allocated to the ABFE, and PIAC again wants issues covering the whereabouts of money to be established. That's a story. Eric, monies under the law expected to be used for a particular project gets redirected to other sectors. That is what PIAC isn't too happy about. Of course, it's the law. But how do we deal with this?
Well, again, it boils down to the issue of law, and in terms of also the practicality of actually executing it. Now, I know for a fact that the Ministry of Finance is saying that the 37% that PIAC is talking about is money that is intact and actually has been unspent and is there. The issue of recurrent expenditure and as opposed to vis-a-vis that of capital expenditure and even development is also a debate out there. I think that one of the underlying things or fallout is the issue of using part of the PIAC money to the oil money revenues to fund the free SHS, for instance, as an example. And you ask yourself,
how need the money.
Yes, and I'm asking myself this question: is funding something as important as education recurrent expenditure? Is it a developmental initiative? Because in the final analysis, whatever you want to do as a country, education is key. It plays a paramount role. So we can have this conversation. It's not something that, for me, I think that we would have to worry ourselves too much with in terms of if there's been a breach or not. If, for us as a people, we realize that going into the future, for instance, in 2018, when the law was actually passed, we think that there are other things that are of more important urgency right. And there's priority. We can, by all means, do that. The Parliament does that all the time. They amend their own rules, they amend laws that are on their allies. Yeah, so we have to do so. But then the average Ghanaian will ask yourself, for instance, without moving away from the conversation, how best do we spend our oil money? How best do we spend monies that accrue from our natural resources in a way that is equitable and it's fair? And I believe strongly that if anything is equitable and fair, the education, things like education and health would probably be paramount or will come as one of the first things that you have to prioritize as any government. So it's important that we delve into it. I've just seen the story today. I'm sure that as the day goes by, a government would actually come up with some explanation. But I believe strongly that if we have national resources, then every single Ghanaian everywhere should have a capacity and opportunity to enjoy, especially when it comes to issues like education, where a child somewhere, I mean, if you have kids that have living in villages somewhere who probably hitherto wouldn't have had an opportunity to benefit, should be able to benefit from something that would also lead to the same developmental transformation that we want as a country. So I don't see anything wrong with that in my own opinion. But if there are issues to do with execution, and this is not the first time we've seen a PIAC report, right? So several of them, some of them even within their era, there were phantom projects that were not found and all of those things. If there are issues with the report and in terms of practicality, right, and it's fit for purpose for today, this day and age, let's have this conversation. But consistently, PIAC will even come out and say that even PIAC as an institution being given the adequate resources to be able to do their work and all that has also come into the fore. Let's support them. Let's make sure that projects and whatever it is that we are also using the same monies for. We are having a conversation about value for money today, that it's actually also things that are actually benefiting the good people of this country. But for me, just saying that government has breached the act does not basically say that monies have been misappropriated or monies are diverted somewhere. It has to be reused. But this conversation, again, I want to emphasize, this conversation about recurrent expenditure and a certain disjoint in terms of infrastructure development and then goods and services. It's something that we can have. I believe strongly that education comes to the fore when it comes to prioritization.
Issues like this.
Yes.
Okay. So PIAC says that 63% of the ABFA is gone into supply of goods, including hospitals, school, and fertilizer supplies and services. And the argument is that, look, we need the money there. Our schools are in bad shape. Our hospitals are not properly running. The farmers need a fertilizer to farm. So why not?
Yeah, it's good. Let me see. We are in a country.
Do we touch the law?
And we have laws.
Okay.
Laws as provided as guidelines so that we don't sleep, get up the next day and decide, oh no, instead of using it for A, I'm rather doing this. That is why we pass laws in this country. And laws are meant to be amended when circumstances change. That is why they are flexible. So if you feel that, okay, the way we pass it, we have to change A or B to suit current events, you bring a bill to Parliament and amend those portions. And this is not the first time the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, which spell out how we use our oil money, has been amended. Let me tell you, in 2015, we normally have a formula for calculating what we call benchmark price. That means that the price that you set up in the budget, that next year we expect oil mark prices to be at this, and quantity produced to be at that, so that you know, you multiply the two, you know the amount of money that you get from the oil. And as a result, you budget what you use it for. When we realized that the formula we're using, in 2015 we were getting $99 per barrel. But in reality, the price was around $45. We realized that that formula was misleading. And as a result, we brought it to Parliament for an amendment so that it becomes flexible, where we now use internationally recognized organizations, what they predict, like IMF and all the think tanks, so that you can strike the average, so that price can hover at least, looks a little bit more realistic. Now, section 21.4 speak clearly what the money that is meant for what we call the budget, the annual budget funding amount, which we call the ABFA. It says that when the oil money comes, I'm giving general look before I come to the 21.4. If we raise the oil money, one, GNPC should be given for what we call CAPI, carried and participating interests, and their equity, give it to them so that they can continue to operate and perform well in the upstream. Whatever is left, 70% should be used to fund the budget.
ABFA.
The 30% left, 70% should be put in what we call the stabilization fund. And 30% of the 30% there should be put into the heritage fund. Now, when you come to the 70% for the ABFA, it also goes further to indicate that 70% of that amount that you put in the budget should be used for capital projects. 30% roads, 30% for recurrent. So what is capital projects and what is recurrent? Recurrent means all the time it comes back, like salaries, like school fees, like free SHS. They are recurrent because every year you are expected to, the same people with addition you are paying. That is what we call recurrent. Capital expenditure is where when you invest, it takes a long time. For example, if you construct a road, like Damongo Fufriso Road, you don't construct it every year. Like the gas plant that we have, a Twabo gas plant, is from oil money. You don't every year go to construct the same. Now, the 21.4 indicate the priority areas for government to use. And one key thing we should learn when they say education. Under NDC, we treat what we go into education like this free estate, what we call capacity building. Because indirectly you are building the capacity.
Yeah, but that a lot of things were going into this capacity building.
Please, let me come.
You know for a fact that a lot of things were going into this capacity building.
So capacity building.
Yeah.
So you can itemize it as part of the 30% of the money that comes to the ABFA. Capacity building. Under NDC, construction of road support, and free SHS didn't start your time. President Mama started free SHS.
Don't go there. But the people who are in school today,
all these things
know that under your
capacity building.
It is not true.
Now,
it is not true.
If you come to the capital, we with physical infrastructure. Now, if you feel that free SHS is very important, then you bring the law.
Okay.
And you change it.
So the point is that you have no problem with the amount going to fertilizer, supplies, schools and hospitals, but we should deal with
it so that we can debate it and take the view of Ghanaians.
Okay.
Because each of us will make consultation to our constituents as MPs.
I think Eric is
and therefore arrive that looking at circumstances, whereby the problem is whereby you have not amend the law. And you think that you can go on a spending spree, breaching the law and feel that it's okay. Then we don't have laws. Then if an ordinary Ghanaian breaches a law, he says, I just thought that I needed to do this. And therefore you cannot take. As a leader of the government, President Nana Akufo-Addo should set an exemplary leadership by respecting the laws of the nation.
Eric, I think the point is making it clear that let's deal with the law first.
That's an oversimplification of the matter, and of course, deliberate, what do you call it, diabolics that he's playing. Listen, it's very simple.
I see.
Right? It is very simple. This matter, right? No monies had gone anywhere. Yes. Especially under the era where I stated categorically, and you can reference other peers.
The usage of the money.
Let me finish. Let me finish. Listen, there's no diversion. But they'll come out. Yes, but an audit
exactly what the money was used for.
Yes. An audit will be undertaken. They I know for a fact that under our watch, there's no going to be phantom projects that PIAC will go around the country trying to locate, and it happened.
No.
Right. Again, this whole conversation around
should government go to parliament and amend?
No, but I say that yes, okay, let's do that. By all means, let's do that. Right. But we can have a conversation or a debate all day long as to what is the priority and what should go into all of these things. But the bottom line is that if we as a country are able to benefit from our natural resources and the revenues that accrue to it, let's by all means make sure that there's an equitable and fair distribution of these resources so that the average Ghanaian, the ordinary Ghanaian, who by dint or by view of the fact that they were born somewhere or do not have the same kind of resources, will be able to benefit from it. And for me, it's important for us to be able to do that, to bring up the social mobility of people. Then the country develops. And if you're able to build more people who are educated, who are enlightened, who are exposed, then it leads to the development of the country.
Okay, let's touch on this one, and quickly we can wrap
I just
up
wanted to touch on something.
Quick one.
Yes. He indicated phantom project. There were projects to be executed.
But the projects were not found. They couldn't find them. The reports are there. But
I set up this benchmark price. I'll do ABC. And well prices fall.
But that is
you will not be able to execute. The bank cannot come out and say, oh, you collected the money and spent. I believe that Auditor General, who has the mandate, should have come out with those things. They can say that they can say that we said we will do project A when it wasn't done. But Dr. Mateo indicated they had not verified from the Minister of Finance
what the money was used,
whether the money had been paid or not. We have to put the records.
Okay, all right.
I'm sure Bright has a lot of research to do before this
I'm telling you today. Let's touch on the Times has a story on the front page. 10 young entrepreneurs get 350,000 cedis. The presidential pitch yesterday President Akufo-Addo is optimistic that the future of the Ghanaian private sector is extremely promising. The president expressed his belief in Ghana's manifest destiny and in the capacity of Ghanaians to construct a new, prosperous Ghanaian civilization that will reflect the progressive values and culture that have defined the Ghanaian people through ages. Now, the president was at the presidential pitch where 10 young entrepreneurs received 350,000 cedis. We're told it will be more because the president actually promised top-ups for some of them. The project started with 2,000 applications, 20 proposals. It was trimmed down 10, and there was a winner. She took home 50,000 cedis. That's what the president promised, an additional 25,000 cedis for her. And we are told that 7 of the startups received 30,000 cedis each, and it's expected to encourage them to start their own business. Eric, let me start the conversation with you. The government says that it believes in government now trying to stay away from becoming the pivot for creation of jobs to the private sector. So this is the beginning of this project.
Well, I mean, we all know that for any economy to develop and to develop to the heights that we all aspire to, I mean, there's this age-old cliche that the private sector is the engine of growth, and we all know that for a fact. And with the advent of technology, for instance, and the sort of things that are happening in the world today as we speak, the biggest companies in the world are the Ubers and the Googles and the Facebooks and the Airbnbs and all of those things. So 20, 30 years ago, none of these businesses existed. So for me, I think that it's actually quite visionary on the part of the government to decide to support these startups. I have experience in dabbling in these startups myself, and it's not easy. However, with the right kind of support and concerted strategy coming from the various public sector institutions that are mandated to support these things, and then also even the private sector, and then even the banking financial sector, minded by the fact that it's important. And that dovetails into this conversation that we were having last Friday about even the sort of things that our banks sort of invest in, where they need to be a bit more proactive and take a bit more risk in terms of supporting some of these startups. Because if we're able to do so, then we'll be able to, one, generate the kind of incomes that we want as a country, create more jobs, be able to sustain the economy, and then they'll now almost formalize the economy, where hitherto people will leave school and are expecting to get a clerk, excuse me, a clerk job in a bank somewhere or in a government institution, but to look at what even the global trend is. Now, as we speak, there's something called a digital economy, whereby the traditional, conventional way of doing things has actually gone. We are even going to the era of artificial intelligence and all of those things. So whilst we are supporting these startups, it's important that we also make sure that it's fit for purpose. They are churning out solutions that are relevant in a modern day global marketplace. The problem that we have, even with startups in this country, is that we're a country of 29 million people. Now, if you develop a product for this population, you might be successful, but then there's a limit to what you can do. So we even need to be a bit more Pan-African in our perspective, be a bit more global in our perspective. And my advice, especially coming from my experience, is that it's imperative. The money is important, but sometimes even when you're giving money as a startup, you probably wouldn't know how to spend. And from my personal experience, you wouldn't know what to spend it on, what's relevant. So it's imperative that you grow organically, you start small, start in a garage, start from your home, start in an environment somewhere, use your immediate environment as your initial customer base, and grow from there. And then collaborate. What tends to happen is that when it comes to startups, there's always this perception that it has to be a one-man business. But you can tap into the collective expertise of other people. You need somebody who has expertise in marketing, for instance, someone in finance, and then the technical people, or the person who has the solutions to give, so that you're able to bounce off ideas from each other. And then with the framework, and even the last couple of years, I think 2017, the budget read by the Minister of Finance stated categorically that entrepreneurs under a certain age bracket would get some tax incentives and all that. Let's make it something that we take advantage of. Go out there. There are other resources with NEIP, the YEA, and other resources that you can take advantage of. And let's build from that perspective. And I think that is an extremely important, and we shouldn't stop there. Whilst we're doing that, even the private sector, we don't have a culture of venture capital in this country, or even angel investors. But in most parts of the world, when you go into the Silicon Valley, even places like Rwanda today, and some part in Kenya, and Nigeria has a thriving startup culture in terms of tech and all of those things. Let's build that. People have money to spend, be a bit more adventurous. Let's support the young entrepreneurs, and we're able to do so many things. For instance, I saw one of these things in a shop somewhere, I think it's Selfridges in the UK, where a designer was using African print and was selling the thing for £2,000, for instance. Whilst we have all these fashion designers here who could probably make better clothes like that. Let's think outside of our small environment, and I'm sure we'll be successful.
I'm grateful. So the startups, 10 of them, government says the intention is to push the private sector to be at the forefront of providing employment.
Yeah, thank you very much. With increasing population and limited white-collar jobs, going into the private sector is very key, especially young Ghanaians who are coming to start life. So it's very important that you venture into small businesses, try it, and it grows. And it started not today. I have worked as a DC, Rural Enterprises Project, which has been with us. It's very key to identify individuals, training them, and to equip them to be able to start something. In Damongo, a lot of people, tie and dye, soap making, all they have contributed significantly. As government, what brought about youth enterprise support is to support the youth to start up. So it didn't start today. It started under many regimes, under President Mahama. The did very well. Support. So it has been ongoing at various levels. And even in the 2016 budget, the president, when delivering, there was physical evidence whereby he mentions the person's name. And I can remember one woman from Upper East, how she was supported.
Don't go there. Don't go there. Don't go there. You see, these are the same people who were actually dissing government for instituting the NAPCO, where individuals who are graduates are going to get 700 Ghana cedis. And this woman, who government are actually giving a leap, what do you call it?
Please,
let me take
don't take
was actually able
don't take my
go into
so they support
farming for it.
They support
don't go there
for startup. It's didn't start now.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I gave Rural Enterprise Project, the Project, and all this. So it is good. Startup in developing countries tend to fail more because grooming is a problem. I believe that these 10 people will be attached to some consultants who monitor their daily activities and provide counseling. And where there is the need for intervention, he intervenes. It's very critical. If you give the money and go and sit and expect that the person will perform wonders, as my brother indicated, sometimes when he gets the money, I have this, what do I do to ensure that his expense is a problem? So most often it should be attached to, you attach them to some consultants who will advise them how to use it, the appropriate, and give daily report. Not only government to give out this money and come to sit in Accra, 3 years later they go to look for the same people and how far they have gone, and we are told they have all collapsed. I think we should move further. apart from this,
to put it
get some people
under the presidency.
You
Because
can
in the
just
story, the
identify a
president says that
consultant
he's
to
going
be- to take in charge.
personal interest in the way these
The presidency is so the presidency is so busy.
So no, but
It has a lot of work.
the point is that
So they should get a consultant to take in charge, so that separate. But if you put everything under the presidency, they will be so busy that they will forget of these 10 people.
The point is very simple, that once you're able to create a model out of these 10 individuals, then it can actually be replicated. I back that.
But he mentions grooming.
Which is fantastic. I mean, the resource is out there. I mean, even under the district assembly system, and you know, there's going to be business advisory centers who are supposed to support all of these things. We shouldn't make it an initiative that would only happen in the urban areas, for instance. That even at the rural level, or even at the district level, and that is part of the government's initiative to be able to bring the business advisory centers to become more responsive to the various communities that they operate in. So for me, I think that it's a step in the right direction. The money is key, is important, but really there are other resources that can also come up. And then, for instance, I always, when I get the opportunity, talk about CSR, for instance, where they're doing some fantastic things, where some of the things that they've done can actually be commercialized. What tends to happen is that they are sitting there on the shelf. So we can, resources, the support. Sometimes you even need the market information. They do some kind of analysis and all of those things. So we are here to help. Some of them, I'm sure, will be able to.
You know, the Business Advisory Center is under Rural Enterprises Project.
Yes.
It's part of the rollout.
Yeah.
And it's not a factory.
This morning I'm trying to scroll through many points.
Everything
didn't happen to me. But of course it didn't happen. It didn't happen.
I used to see anytime you visited these rural community, you saw their sign post there. Rural Enterprise.
They do very well, very well.
Particularly in this the southern part of the country. Gentlemen, I'm grateful for your time with us this morning. Eric Chumamako is a member of the NPP's team, a member of Parliament for Damongo, and a member of the NDC, Honorable Adam Mutawakelum was my second guest. I'm grateful for your time. Stay with us. We'll tell you all that's happening in Russia. Yesterday, the video assistant referee, I think, was the winner for the day. The sports team will tell you more. Stay on. There's more coming.
Well, we're back here and we're talking about Accra Girls Senior High School. I mean, it's a mouthful because of how we've changed the schools. But of course, Harriet Asunda, my director, is an old girl and she's making so much noise about it. And of course, Auntie B here as well. But I've been joined by the old girls. I have Dinah Plaha, she's the organizing secretary of the Advisory Council, and Linda Adra Holdbrook Emisa. She's an old student for the 1985 year group. Wow. You guys are old. But anyway, welcome to CBP. You are older, certainly.
Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. How is it like? I mean, this is your maiden edition of Homecoming. What's the feeling?
It is very exciting, and then we are looking forward to having a rollicking time on Saturday. The program starts as early as 6 o'clock in the morning, and we are urging all Agosans to come on board and come and feel the excitement, and then to join in the fun as well. Yes.
For you, Auntie Linda, going back 1985,
I feel old now.
like wow. I mean, when you go back to the school, what's the euphoria like? Do you still feel you're back in school? You have to be a good girl, or you're just having fun whilst there?
I don't feel like being a good girl. I feel all the emotions, all the happiness, all the places, all the sports that we used to do things. It gets you going. It's still the same, by the way. Everywhere you turn, there's a bit of memory there. So we never left. We are still there.
Okay, nice. Let me come back to you, Auntie Dinah. So tell us about the school. How old are you? And I mean, you've gone through many phases. So we would like to know some of the problems there and what you're seeking, as old girls to do to help the school.
The school was established in 1960. So we'll be 58 years old, and in 2 years' time, we'll be celebrating our 60th anniversary.
You're competing with Ghana.
Yes, yes. And then the first headmistress, Mrs. Ayi, and then others have come and they've done their bit. But we have taken over, and we are trying to reunite everybody to come on board, so that we'll spruce up the structures in the school. The school is old, so we have dilapidated structures.
Yes, we do.
So we are tackling all these structures. We have year groups coming in to own projects, execute them, and then commission them. And then we have individuals coming on board as well. So everybody, Agosa, wherever you are, I'm on TV3, and I'm urging all of you to come home. Come and see things for yourself. Come and see what is happening in the school, and be part of it.
Right.
Let us all give up back what the school has given to us. Yes.
But your motto, it says aim high.
Aim high. I'm glad you touched on that.
Yes, because I know you have to talk about that.
God, aim high is powerful, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So we need to retune into aim high. Right. That's what we want to encourage all girls to do. Aim high means, as a student of Agosa, Accra Girls, as an old student, you are always aiming high. Right. For instance, this morning when we came, we were told we were not allowed to wear T-shirts. Look at what I've done.
Creative.
Look at what
It's so beautiful. Are you a fashion designer?
I'm not, but I can hear aim high
in your ear. Nice one there. I like that.
High in my ears.
We can do with what you have.
That is what it's all about. Yes. It's innovative.
Yes.
So now, from going forward, we want every single old student to be aiming high, to bring back all the aim high spirit. Agosa means attitude. You're not just saying you're an Agosan. It's what you do being an Agosan. Attitude, bring on board all your networks, bring on board everything you can do to help the school with. That's what we're looking for.
Well, I want to know, because this is your maiden edition, how difficult or how easy was it coming together to establish this?
Well, we have a board in place, and she is very dynamic. She is championing everything, and we are all just backing her up and then rallying behind her to give her all the necessary support that she needs. So I'm sure she'll be able to tell you how far we've traveled and what we have in the pipeline on Saturday morning, 6 o'clock sharp. Everybody, be in your T-shirts.
Were you a school prefect?
I was the dining hall prefect.
When she said 6 o'clock sharp, if you miss it, you've missed your food.
Cannot miss. When I stand there and I'm holding the bell and you are late, you run. I mean, those were the days when discipline
was in place.
Yes.
But I wouldn't take all the credit for the organization, though. I must say, everybody's been fantastic. Yeah, exactly. Everybody's been fantastic. We've got a year group, a year rep platform. We have lots of people dedicating themselves to this project. We have, as you can see, we are here now based on recommendations. So it wasn't just me. All I do is put the word out there, try and pull everybody together, and everybody seemed to have the right spirit. Everybody's just running. You ask for this, they give it to you. The excitement is very, very high. So I would give the credit to Agosa, and that's where we want to start from. We want to start bringing everybody on board. We want to start saying to everybody there is something for everybody to do. Yeah.
So what do we look forward to in the coming years from Agosa and Accra Girls in general?
Basically, developments. Bring on the money. Bring on the project. Let us come together. We have a theme. It's Sankofa Agosa Reunite to build our alma mater. So hopefully, all the Agosans hiding in their corners thinking, I don't want to go back there. We want them all to come back.
Yes, it is happening. So please get involved.
So just run us through the program lineup for Saturday.
Do that.
Okay, 6 o'clock bang on dots. We all arrive in the school. I don't know whether you've heard about Kwena. Kwena, the dance fitness. She has just offered us her services. So she's going to come and do a warm-up session with us for half an hour. Half an hour, 6:30, we are on the streets
with a brass band.
With a brass band, with a DJ. You will be hearing from her. You will see us everywhere. 37 all the way to Kalkudi. We come back. Elwak, we come back, we go back on ourselves, Tank Palace, we go through Pig Farm, and then we come back. And then when we get back into the school, Kierna is there doing her dance move. We've got spandex, we've got sunglasses, we've got all that going on. And then we've got bazaar, we've got the food bazaars, we've got the live band, we've got everything going. We've got games. So hopefully this homecoming is a bonding session. We want to bond with our peers. We want to have a bit of a tipple and have a good laugh, talk about the past. And then more importantly, we want to fundraise. We want to fundraise. There are lots of projects to do. We've got a speak day coming in October. There's a lot of projects for people to take. So we are going to encourage all year groups to come to ask which project
they can help with.
They can help.
And then we have a project list. If you go to the headmistress, have a chat with her. She's willing to tell you what we need. We have our wants and our needs, you know. So we have prioritized everything. Just come, talk to her. She has an open door policy. She's ready to listen to you and to offer advice.
Very well. Let me say thank you to you for coming, Auntie Dinah Plaha. She's the organizing secretary of the Advisory Council, and Linda Adra Holdbrook Emisa, an old student of the 1985 year group. This Saturday, we're all going to Accra Girls to support them as they go. They say aim high. Let's all aim high, not only for the school, but the whole country, I guess. Let's take a break. We'll be back with more here on Newday. Well, earlier last week, I think, the Food and Drugs Authority issued a statement concerning fake drugs that had penetrated the system. And also, of course, there's that talk about tramadol abuse and cough syrups containing codeine that are being banned. We'll take a look at that. Joining me is Mr. James Latte. He's the head of communications and public education with the Food and Drugs Authority. Good morning, Mr. Latte.
Good morning.
Let's start off with the fake drugs that are penetrating the system. I'm interested in finding out, how does Food and Drug Authority identify these drugs? Is it that people give you a tip-off, or you go out and you actively screen for them?
Thank you very much. You know, what we normally do is that we have a post-market surveillance activity that we do. And it's something we do on daily basis.
Right.
As we go on the markets, we can pick products as random, test them, find out what is in them. And then if there's a problem, we alert the general public on it. If you can remember, some few weeks ago, we did something on some herbal medicines.
Right.
What we found out that they contain sildenafil. Immediately we had to ban those 6 products. You know, this is the way we operate. So with these particular products, we are currently doing a national screening of malaria tablets and dewormers. Understand? It was during the exercise that the Ashanti region and the Eastern region found these products to be fake. We have a machine that we use. And again, even when it comes to the approved routes, as in Tema Harbour, I'm talking about medicines, as in Tema Harbour and Kuta International Airport. Assuming somebody imports like a 40-footer container of medicines into the country, approved ones, registered medicines, the person can decide to conceal unregistered medicines in the registered ones. And you see, there's no way the officials there can unload every single box within the 40-footer container and open and check. So sometimes these are the challenges. But we use the PMS, that's the post-market surveillance, that if we are outwitted at these places, we'll use that means to get the products on the market. And I'm telling you, it's an idiot job that we are doing.
It is. And so I'm wondering, with the post-market surveillance, are you sure you're able to capture that huge number of people who allow drugs to be smuggled in illegally? Because my worry is we have quite an uneducated populace, and with that, let's say now we're talking about Kwatem and Zento, but majority of the people out there who this information is to reach don't even get that information, and so some people will still be taking these drugs we're talking about. See, so is it enough?
You know, you mentioned something I was very happy about, collaboration. Look, if everyone is playing its role, like let's say Pharmacy Council is doing a lot of education to the pharmacists, licensed chemical sellers and things. NACOB, Ghana Health Service, everybody's acting. What is going to happen is that if, for instance, I'm buying medicine, I have a shop, I'm buying medicines into the shop, I'll be very alert who I buy the medicine from into my shop. Once I source it from the right channel, the possibility that I'm buying fake products into the shop is minimal. I won't say that it's cancer, but it's minimal. You understand? assuming, let me just mention that I've mentioned this several times, and I normally use that to explain things to the general public. So let me use that. Look, we had a case where a medical doctor walked into our office. Okay. He was treating a patient with augmentin, and the patient was not responding to treatment. Right. When we took the drug to the lab, it was tested. We noticed that it contains starch, no active ingredients.
Interesting.
No active ingredients. Now we asked the doctor, where do you purchase the medicine from? He mentioned a particular pharmacy shop. We traced to the owner. The owner was arrested. During interrogation, he said it was supplied to him by a Nigerian drug peddler. You see the problem? If he had sourced the augmentin from the right source, he wouldn't have given the doctor a wrong medication. Or natural for the pharmacy didn't know that it was fake. He looked at how cheap the product was, bought it because he wanted to make profit. So every one of us ought to play a role. If I'm sourcing the medicine from the right places, I'm in a way, directly or indirectly, I'm minimizing the possibility of selling fake products.
But Mr. Latte, you know that in Ghana it's difficult to find out the right place, as we put it, because people actually fake their documents, certification. You'd go there all right, and he has something hanging that shows as a certificate. For the ordinary person out there who hasn't gone through the schooling you and I may have been privileged to go through, how does he know who is right and who is wrong?
You see, I'm now talking more of the seller, the retailer of the medicine.
But not all of them are educated, unfortunately.
That is why Pharmacy Council have been doing training for even the chemical sellers and the pharmacists who have already been trained, and they do continuous training. So they make sure that they purchase, they store, everything is done rightly. And you see, one other thing I need to mention is that aside the shops, I think the general public must also desist from patronizing medicines in buses. Lorry parks from peddlers. People walk into your shop with a rubber bag. I'm selling this medicine. They just buy it because it's a Wema. But the point is that walking with the medicine through the sun, the storage, could compromise the product. So you see, we all need to play our respective roles in making sure that these things are done rightly.
So we'll come back to the collaboration, because you're right. If I tell you what about arresting them, it's not in your purview. But obviously you know that these people who peddle drugs in buses don't actually sell the things that have passed through your channels. Most of them are fake. Most of them have not qualified to be FDA approved. And so they shouldn't be there in the first place. So what do you, FDA, do about these people? What are you doing?
We have collaborated with the police. Pharmacy Council arrested a lot of people.
But they get back on the street somehow.
You know, so you realize that the arrest, whether it's working. I remember there was a particular one, we took about 27 people to court. I mean, the judge handled the case. He said, no, they are first-time offenders. They are freed. Within a short time, they're still back on the road. GPR2 just recently issued a statement that they banned sale of medicine which is a right thing. I would expect that the police and then the GPR2 themselves will now enforce that directive that was given. You are found selling medicines, you are arrested. You know, we need to do all these things just with the mind of protecting public health and safety.
Very well. But let's move on to other issues, such as the tramadol and the cough syrups containing codeine. What has been the issue so far? What have you been able to do as an authority concerning this?
Yeah, there's a lot of education going on, especially when it comes to the tramadol. With the codeine containing cough syrups, recently you had a Minister of Health mentioning the plans to get it banned. This will be implemented very soon. In actual fact, it's something we started working on. Companies have been written to. We are no more allowing the imports of those medicines. You understand? So this is what is happening at the moment. So when it comes to the codeine containing cough syrups, for that one, yes, it's going to be banned. But with the tramadol, we've had a meeting. We have a technical advisory committee. I'm sure you know about them. It was an extensive meeting, and it came out plain that you cannot substitute the tramadol for the cough syrup containing codeine. You can, but the tramadol cannot. So you cannot ban the tramadol. What we need to do is to continue with the enforcement, education, to make sure that the right things are being done.
Right.
You know, so this was happening at the moment.
Very well. Well, we would like to thank FDA. We seem to see some good work in this year, particularly. You have been doing a lot of education and a lot of information coming across for citizenry to appreciate what you're doing. I hope you keep up the good work. We have been speaking to Mr. James Latte, Head of Communications and Public Education of the Food and Drugs Authority, giving us some updates on tramadol, codeine-containing cough syrups, and also the fact that Zental and Coartem that are fake in the Eastern and Ashanti regions have been seized and investigations are ongoing. He'll be back here to give us updates to that as it keeps unfolding. We'll take a break. We'll be back with more here on Newday. Is specially dedicated to Johnny Beresford Hughes, who has started, as Bright will say, his lifelong journey. Yes, it's a morning cool for him wherever he is.
Johnny, I won't say anything for now.
Oh, but what do you want to say?
No, I'll not talk to him, but
you call him.
I've changed my mind. All right. It's been a wonderful day this morning. It's a Tuesday, which means that we're getting to the middle of the week. Now, I mean, the key thing is that once you're getting in the middle of the week, you have to go back to your tracker. If there was something you plan to do this week and you're not in the middle of it, it means that you're slacking. So check that and be productive. Certainly, another day comes tomorrow. But first, before we go, it's been wonderful. I saw the FDA and what they're doing as far as making sure that we don't run into trouble with some of the medicines and other stuff we buy from them.
But Bright, of course, we're in the football season, and so we have to talk about football. Are you Ghana's biggest football fan? Then you should join the second season of the Emirates Football Challenge, where you can have the chance to win 2 flights and match tickets to watch Arsenal live at the Emirates Stadium in London. The challenge starts on the 2nd of July, only on the sports station. You'll be given a number to call and to send a WhatsApp with your name, your age, and the city you live in. Fly Emirates for a world of good time. I think I should be applying for this because, of course, everyone knows I'm a Ghana, a true Ghana at heart. Yes, it's only that I'll have to leave my patients behind to go. So I have to consider that.
I thought once Arsene Wenger was going, you were going to go with him.
Oh, I didn't come with him. I mean, I was there before him. I mean, like so his grandfather, but
he's going to be. You're still an Arsenal fan. Okay.
It's my legacy. I'll live with it till I die.
Oh, great.
I hope
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm going. Have heartbreaks.
No, I don't. My heart is resilient. Anyway, guys, that's what we have for you this morning. We'll be coming your same time tomorrow. We'll be here 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. I don't know why you watch any other morning show apart from this, when we serve you the best breakfast in Ghana. And
of course, the team out there, Oga George and his team in Navrongo, IB and Kalala Radio Progress. Wow, the team I know has watched the whole show from 6 a.m. to 9. And of course, those of you in Bongo, we're also grateful that you stayed there to be part of the conversation. We're back same time tomorrow at 6 a.m. And for Johnny, his lifelong journey continues wherever he is. And we'll tell you what exactly will end up in that journey, maybe in the course of the week.
It feels like a quiz. The person to find out where Johnny is will get a prize. Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good day.